That means less air seeps into your home and you keep more money in your pocket. Eagleboard's beauty and performance will last a lifetime. Call Eagle Home Improvement at 259-2500 for a free no-obligation estimate. Eagle Home Improvement, where integrity counts.
Has free checking become a thing of the past? Not if Liberty has anything to say about it. With 3 free personal checking options and even a free business checking account, free is alive and well at Liberty Bank, the local bank that gives you free checking choices and more cashing in your pocket. Bank locally, bank Liberty. For more information, visit www.bankliberty.com.
Halpin Music Company is so much more than just a music products retailer. We do have great products at great prices, but we've been long known for our exceptional customer service, our friendly sales staff, and highly trained, experienced repair technicians. We have great and talented music instructors, students young and old alike, all age groups. So I invite you to come to Halpin Music Company and experience the Halpin Music Company difference.
In today's economy, everyone's looking for an encouraging sign. That's exactly what you'll find right here at my State Farm office in Bethalto. I'm Tom Lane, and for 86 years, State Farm agents like me have been helping you protect the things that matter most. That's why more people trust State Farm, and why we consider that a very good sign.
Call Tom Lane State Farm office in Bethalto at 377-8912 or go to tomlaneagency.net.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Trigger Talents course covers the mandated curriculums of Illinois and Florida. Our facility allows for a safe, professional, comfortable in any weather shooting environment. We utilize a variety of law enforcement targets to illustrate the best shot placement for stopping threats. Our advanced course, CCW Plus, is the only in the state to offer training from a real vehicle in road rage, carjacking, and parking lot scenarios. Over 1,400 people have trusted Trigger Talent to be their choice in concealed carry and advanced instruction. Shouldn't you also?
You walk onto this campus and it feels as though you're at an Ivy League institution.
It is cultured in so many ways. You would never know that it is a 2-year college.
This place is truly amazing. I love going to school here.
It is definitely not like any other community college.
If you're looking for a way for your life to change, then Lewis & Clark is the place for you to be.
Welcome to Claywell Asset Management, an independent firm. Whether you're an individual, family, or business, we can assist you in helping you achieve your financial dreams. Claywell Asset Management and Raymond James, partners in your success in serving Riverbend investors for over 30 years. Member FINRA and SIPC.
At Midwest Members Credit Union, you are important. We work hard to ensure you have the best banking experience possible. Whether you are inquiring about opening a savings account or wanting to learn more about a loan, our professionals are here to help you with any questions, and we will walk you through every step of the process. Since opening our doors in 1935, we've never forgotten that our members are our most important asset, which is why we continue to excel. For all your banking needs, Midwest Members is the one place to go. Calc Institute of Technology is working for you with career programs for today's jobs. As a career student, you can expect a welcoming atmosphere with exceptional personal service, small classes with one-on-one attention, a set class schedule, and short-term programs that will get you into the workforce quickly. Calc has 2 locations for your convenience located in both Alton and Fairview Heights. For more information, visit Calc online at www.calc.edu.
I'll grab the birthday cake, you bring the gift, if you're sure she's ready.
She's 16, honey, and she's earned a set of keys.
She's studied and practiced, I know, but it's a big responsibility.
When you have a teen driver, it's good to know that Madison Mutual has the insurance coverage you need.
She's ready, and so are we. I talked to our Madison Mutual agent.
Call Barry Macias, your local independent insurance agent, at 467-2874.
The more life changes, the more you need Madison Mutual.
One of the greatest myths about car dealers is that some pay less for their cars than others. Hi, I'm John Roberts, and we all pay the same. Here at Roberts Motors, we can compete with any Ford dealer, regardless of how big they are or how great they say their deals are. The number one concern of anyone buying a car today is service. At Roberts Motors, we pride ourselves in exceptional service before, after, and during the sale. Stop in today and see why Roberts has been the home of happy customers since 1949. Or see us online at RiverBender.com.
Trust Family Auto Sales and Cycles focuses on providing you with the highest quality used vehicles in the Riverbend. Before hitting the lot, all cars are thoroughly inspected and serviced in our very own repair shop. We make sure your future vehicle will look like it just came off the assembly line. We have a massive selection of cars with price ranges to fit any budget, and our motorcycles look like they just came off the showroom floor. Trust can finance any credit situation and have you on the road in no time. Whether you're looking for a car, truck, van, SUV, hybrid, or motorcycle, Trust Family Auto Sales has you covered.
Slow turn your dad. Slow turn your dad. So, I'm more concerned. You're more concerned. So, alright, a little background. So, John and I met a while back through Facebook. That's who you said. So, just, we were going to talk about topics that are hot topics. We'll eventually expand this out of the Facebook and look at your questions and call them. John's friends will be able to do it. But I don't have to.
Calc Institute of Technology is working for you with career programs for today's jobs. As a career student, you can expect a welcoming atmosphere with exceptional personal service, small classes with one-on-one attention, a set class schedule, and short-term programs that will get you into the workforce quickly. Calc has 2 locations for your convenience located in both Alton and Fairview Heights. For more information, visit Calc online at www.calc.edu.
I'll grab the birthday cake, you bring the gift, if you're sure she's ready.
She's 16, honey, and she's earned a set of keys.
She's studied and practiced, I know, but it's a big responsibility.
When you have a teen driver, it's good to know that Madison Mutual has the insurance coverage you need.
She's ready, and so are we. I talked to our Madison Mutual agent.
Call Barry Macias, your local independent insurance agent, at 467-2874.
The more life changes, the more you need Madison Mutual.
One of the greatest myths about car dealers is that some pay less for their cars than others. Hi, I'm John Roberts, and we all pay the same. Here at Roberts Motors, we can compete with any Ford dealer, regardless of how big they are or how great they say their deals are. The number one concern of anyone buying a car today is service. At Roberts Motors, we pride ourselves in exceptional service before, after, and during the sale. Stop in today and see why Roberts has been the home of happy customers since 1949. Or see us online at RiverBender.com.
Trust Family Auto Sales and Cycles focuses on providing you with the highest quality used vehicles in the Riverbend. Before hitting the lot, all cars are thoroughly inspected and serviced in our very own repair shop. We make sure your future vehicle will look like it just came off the assembly line. We have a massive selection of cars with price ranges to fit any budget, and our motorcycles look like they just came off the showroom floor. Trust can finance any credit situation and have you on the road in no time. Whether you're looking for a car, truck, van, SUV, hybrid, or motorcycle, Trust Family Auto Sales has you covered.
The cold weather will be here soon. Protect your home and save money with Eagle Board premium vinyl siding from Eagle Home Improvement. Each Eagle Board panel covers twice the area of conventional siding. That means less air seeps into your home and you keep more money in your pocket. Eagle Board's beauty and performance will last a lifetime. Call Eagle Home Improvement at 259-2500 for a free no-obligation estimate. Eagle Home Improvement, where integrity counts.
Has free checking become a thing of the past? Not if Liberty has anything to say about it. With 3 free personal checking options and even a free business checking account, free is alive and well at Liberty Bank, the local bank that gives you free checking choices and more cashing in your pocket. Bank locally, bank Liberty. For more information, visit www.bankliberty.com.
Halpin Music Company is so much more than just a music products retailer. We do have great products at great prices, but we've been long known for our exceptional customer service, our friendly sales staff, and highly trained, experienced repair technicians. We have great and talented music instructors, students young and old alike, all age groups. So I invite you to come to Halpin Music Company and experience the Halpin Music Company difference.
In today's economy, everyone's looking for an encouraging sign. That's exactly what you'll find right here at my State Farm office in Bethalto. I'm Tom Lane, and for 86 years, State Farm agents like me have been helping you protect the things that matter most. That's why more people trust State Farm, and why we consider that a very good sign.
Call Tom Lane State Farm office in Bethalto at 377-8912 or go to tomlaneagency.net.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Trigger Talents course.
Slow turn me down. Slow turn me down. So,
I'm more of a concern.
You're more concerned. So, alright, a little background. So, John and I met a while back through Facebook. That's who you said. So, just, we were going to talk about topics that are hot topics. We'll eventually expand this out into Facebook, and look at your questions and call in. John's friends will be able to do it. But I don't have Hey, welcome to We Might Disagree with Brian and John. And you can see John's not here. He's on his way, stuck in traffic. We have a very special guest with us today, Joshua Young. Thank you for coming, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, thanks for coming. We 5 different time zones to get this thing done. It was, as most of you know that watch the show, we tend to not be real punctual, and Joshua's been very gracious in altering time and day, I think 4 times or since Wednesday. So, wanted to get him on the show, introduce himself to you guys, let you guys know who he is and what he's about. We're going to discuss, some of you may have read recently in the news, local news here, that there's him and Lieutenant Dan Roshkov had some trouble with paperwork. We're going to discuss a little bit of that. Just for transparency, we did invite Lieutenant Dan onto the show. He did decline. He said he's doing his thing. He's good to go, so we're fine with that. Joshua definitely was going to come on the show anyway. We thought we'd let him introduce himself and talk a little bit about that in the meantime. So, Joshua, welcome to the show. Thank you, really, truly thank you for putting up with us. We are looking for a producer, just for the record. I'm kidding. So the guy owns the show. We can't kick him out. So Joshua, so you're running for mayor. I heard your name in circles over time. Reached out to you on Facebook. You and I have kind of back and forth moderately over last 2 or 3 months, probably since October, I think, September. Seemed like a good guy, good Altonian. Love that. So tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Just give us a little bit of background about how long you lived in Alton. We'll get into the mayor stuff in a minute. Just who is Joshua Young?
All right. Well, I was born and raised here in Alton. I went to Alton High. I left from Alton High and went to United States Marine Corps.
Woo! Hey, you guys know me. That gets my blood rolling. Super fire there.
All right. So I went to the Marine Corps, and there I was dual MOS. I did administrative and legal services, basically like a paralegal and all that. But I worked with a grant unit, so there goes my ability to kind of sneak away and be administrative. It was like, no, we're sending you right to the grant unit. Let's see you pull the admin stuff off there, young. So, but I had a good time. It taught me a lot of things about, service, community, country. Right. It gave me a lot of values, and I bring them to the table with me as I, make this campaign. I'm a father of 2. My oldest is in Tampa, Florida, Dee Dee. My youngest is here. Her name is Jasmine. She's 7. She's definitely, keeping me grounded. She's number 1 on Team Young. But I started doing social advocacy probably about 2011, while I was attending out at Lewis and Clark Community College. Some of the professors kind of got with me and said, "Hey, you seem like you got a strong passion for, you know, eradicating social dysfunctions and things as such. You know, my major being in psychology, but, you know, focusing in sociology and criminological factors." So, you know, I told them, I said, well, you know, I have a method that I believe could reduce the criminal intent. And they were like, okay, well, you know, my criminal, you know, justice instructor was, you know, Dan Carlton at
Probably
the time.
interested in hearing about that, wasn't he?
You know, he was like, oh, okay, well, you know, we talked back and forth about how things like the Kansas City experiment, where they placed police vehicles in areas, it didn't really affect crime or the criminal intent. You know, it stayed about the same once they realized that it's a dummy car. But, you know, I told them, well, let's try more correlative, you know, solutions where you actually get involved in the community and you find out what are the variables that's producing the criminal intent. Is it, you know, income standards? You know, are there, you know, not enough jobs to facilitate the levels of skill? And if so, do we need skill building things, you know, to facilitate that demographic as well? I found it to be a number of factors, and it hugely revolved around ethics and policies, you know, and the distribution or the carrying out of practices. So I decided that I would go a little bit further, because in 2012 we did the study with Bell Manor. We got in there and we applied those same standards to show that the people weren't, you know, causing their criminal intent as, you know, it was just broadly suggested. You know, it was a bit of role malfeasance, a bit of, you know, policy and procedure, a bit of discretionary things going on out there. You know, hugely tied with the management on the complex and things and such like that. Just good people forced to have bad conditions and trying to deal with it. Okay. So if you provide a little bit of, you know, a barrier of support to that type of thing, then you can help it to rise above those circumstances, which it did. 2012, they qualified Bell Manor and crime being reduced. And we haven't had such a reduction since then.
That's interesting. I was unaware of that. I didn't even know that study was done. I didn't even know.
It was just a grassroots thing. We said, okay, I went to the prior administration was Mayor Haste.
Yes.
And he said, hey, Josh, my area of crime is Bell Manor. Go out there and kind of check that out. And if you can reduce crime out there, you know, we'll give it a shot. But of course, he didn't win the next election, and here we are.
Here we are.
You know.
So Bell Manor was the highest crime. I did not know that. I didn't know that Bell Manor was a high crime area. I know that that's where a couple years ago that young man was, that little boy. I shouldn't say young man, 11-year-old. He's the same age as my son, was shot and killed.
Well, that's in the adjacent Alton Acres complex.
Okay.
Bell Manor is a private complex.
Okay.
So the residents of that complex didn't have the same housing rights as, say, you know, HUD supported properties. So if they were to be shut down, you have all of those single mothers homeless or placed into housing, you know, situations. And, you know, now they're going through a period of reconstruction. You know, during that time, at the end of the study, we put Christmas lights going around the entire structure.
Which is good.
You know,
yeah. I've been watching it kind of. I drive by it a lot, so I've been watching it kind of go on.
But that was all in 2012. So we fast forward. I did participated in some groups with Dunbar Lodge, 97. You know, got involved with the NAACP just so I can get a feel for the community and how, you know, the conditions of livelihoods are affected when it comes to the administration. You know, what could the city do better to facilitate the people is what I thought. Right. Then I got involved in politics and picked up the precinct committeeman position earlier this year. Well, with that, I decided let's try and level, you know, Alton's, you know, historical significance. So I put in the application to make my precinct plus a little more of what is commonly known as the Mexico neighborhood, to make it the first local African-American historic district, which would have, you know, potentially brought huge revenue, you know, an increase in tourism. There, you know, the historical accuracies go all the way back to World War I.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, and so with my work with the American Legion, post 354, I decided to put on that Buffalo Soldier walk.
Okay.
And that,
I think I'm familiar with that, actually.
That took some Marine Corps pride right there. I went through some, it's always change one to change two. Right. So, I decided, hey, if I have to, get dropped off on the other side of Illinois with colors in my backpack, so right. Be it. And that's exactly what happened. Murphy's Law.
But you got it done. I mean, you did it, right? I mean,
yeah, but I wanted to bring about attention to what Alton can do as a small community like this. With home rule, and we just have a little bit of compassion and get focused in on our people. That's our best commodity is the passions of the people.
Well, I think John and I we've talked a lot off air. We haven't brought up a lot, as we bring you guys on the show to talk to you about. We see a lot of potential in Alton. That's just not happening. You look at the significance of Alton historically. We've got a lot of historical things here, dating back to the Civil War. The significance of that. Robert Wadlow, the significance of that. I guess we can celebrate we're the most haunted town as well. But Alton's not just Alton. And when I sit back, like I said, I live in Godfrey. But for me, I feel like Godfrey is a spinoff of Alton. And I've lived in Godfrey my entire life. I moved a total of 6 miles. Maybe not even that far, really. But if Alton does well, the entire area around it does well.
I agree.
And so it's so important. And that's why John and I decided, we're going to jump into this local race. And again, today is not to grill you and challenge you in any way. It's just to kind of talk about you. But, we intend to dig into it. We're not saying the mayor's doing a bad job or a good job. We don't have an egg in that basket. But, we got 4 candidates that are running, so we've got some diversity this time, which I think is good. So, looking at it, standing back and looking at it, and you think, this is going to be interesting.
Right. Well, I actually welcome that challenging and dig process. You do,
and I will vouch for it. You've reached out to me multiple times. You have. So I will say that I will go on record and say you are not afraid to get in front of somebody and debate and be very well versed in it. So I think that's a good thing, and I think your time's coming. It's coming. So I know I'm going to be there when it happens. So I look forward to it.
Well, let's talk about this progressive campaign that I decided to bring about. Well, it's kind of like a revisiting of the progressive era of the early 1900s. Okay. That was a huge time of economic rise for all demographics.
Right.
Everybody was kind of doing their thing. Cultural renaissances was going on. People were getting things set up. But the lack of that time period was that certain civil liberties and rights and technology wasn't, as what it is today.
True. Very true.
Now we fast forward 100 years now where more things are possible. Hope is expansive. The American dream is out there and ready. But the problem is the power groups. Let's get rid of these power groups. Let's get rid of all of the governmental garbage that keeps people from progressing in the small town. That is home rule. Home rule means...
Give me a for instance. Give me a for instance of you say a power group. So I see power groups in like large campaign or large politics picture. I see it. I think we saw that through the recent presidential elections. But where do you see a power group in Alton?
Well, what we have is we got to go off the empirical value. What people believe is to be so usually is how they respond to it. Okay. And in Alton, it's one of those feelings where you got to be part of this social structure or that social structure, or know this person or know that person, or kind of get ushered in, which became a issue with my actual candidacy, where they said, well, who told you could run as a Democrat? Pretty much.
So let's do this, Josh. Let's take a quick break, okay? We're gonna stop on that. I'm gonna do some magic work. I got a magic wand here. I'm gonna see if I can make my partner appear over here. When we get back, hopefully he'll be here, and we'll continue on that. We'll be right back. We might disagree with Brian, John, special guest Josh Young. Right back.
It's warm outside now, but cold weather will be here soon. Protect your home and save money with Eagle Board premium vinyl siding from Eagle Home Improvement. Each Eagle Board panel covers twice the area of conventional siding. That means less air seeps into your home and you keep more money in your pocket. Eagle Board's beauty and performance will last a lifetime. Call Eagle Home Improvement at 259-2500 for a free no-obligation estimate. Eagle Home Improvement, where integrity counts.
Has free checking become a thing of the past? Not if Liberty has anything to say about it. With 3 free personal checking options and even a free business checking account, free is alive and well at Liberty Bank, the local bank that gives you free checking choices and more cashing in your pocket. Bank locally, bank Liberty. For more information, visit www.bankliberty.com.
Halpin Music Company is so much more than just a music products retailer. We do have great products at great prices, but we've been long known for our exceptional customer service, our friendly sales staff, and highly trained, experienced repair technicians. We have great and talented music instructors, students young and old alike, all age groups. So I invite you to come to Halpin Music Company and experience the Halpin Music Company difference.
In today's economy, everyone's looking for an encouraging sign. That's exactly what you'll find right here at my State Farm office in Bethalto. I'm Tom Lane, and for 86 years, State Farm agents like me have been helping you protect the things that matter most. That's why more people trust State Farm, and why we consider that a very good sign.
Call Tom Lane State Farm office in Bethalto at 377-8912 or go to tomlaneagency.net.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
All right, welcome back to We Might Disagree with Bryant and John. He's here. The magic wand worked. Anyway, he's here. Special guest Joshua Young's with us.
Again, thank you for having me.
Yeah, honestly, it's been a pleasure. So thanks for getting here, John. John got stuck in traffic, and I did explain to the people that this date and time has been a nightmare for all of us, and how flexible Mr. Young's been in getting here. So let's pick up where we were. You were talking about bringing back and modernizing a early 1900 progressive movement in your campaign.
Right.
Correct.
Well, just to refresh on that, as I was saying, back in that time frame, economic progression was kind of fluent back then. Everybody was doing their thing, socioeconomically, cultures was kind of doing their thing as well. Even though there was a bit of segregation, everybody still kind of flourished. But if we fast forward now to today's times, we have advancements in technology, advancements in laws of civil liberties and things and such like that, which allow us to actually make the ideology of a progressive movement work in today's time, where we can in a sense say there is no more box. We're home rule. We can do as we please.
But can I catch you off just for a second here?
Sure.
Because I think technology is an interesting problem and blessing. One thing that I love about technology, particularly like Facebook, is that now we have a platform where we can talk to people literally all over the world at virtually little cost, and that's a blessing. One of the curses of technology, though, is that you can replace people with technology. And one of the things that I think we're seeing in the modern workplace is that that because of the use of technology for robotics and software and all those things, the American worker is the most efficient worker in the world. And because of that, one person now is literally doing all of the work that there used to be an entire pool of clerical workers in 1955, 1960. They used to have, for example, computers that took up the entire almost the entire size of this basement. Now that same computer is right there, is on your phone or is on that laptop. And so my point is, one of the challenges of people that are trying to develop modern economies is how do you take the fact that computers are wonderful things, but they're putting some people out of work, and how do you develop kinds of industries and opportunities in communities like Alton, which, let's be honest, it's a step behind a lot of America. How do you do that? And what do you have any thoughts on that?
Well,
does that question make sense?
It makes great sense to me. It's one of those things that, I'm a visionary, and I like to see, how do we, tackle those things. So instead of using more of a causation type of solution, I look more of a correlative or correlation solutions. So we gotta look at the value of our citizens, the human condition versus the modernization. There's a way that a city such as ours, where we can, in a sense, be tabula rasa, or blank slate. Start fresh, start from a new ideology, a new perspective of how we build cohesively as a total community. And when it comes to technology and, infrastructure, let's increase our infrastructure from a homegrown perspective. Let's give people a chance to use less heavy machines and, get more of their own sweat equity in there. And,
all about sweat equity.
See, I have an aversion to sweat, which is why I'm in this condition. But
that's the wonderful thing about a progressive campaign like this, is that it's so inclusive that it allows for people to kind of do as their passion goes and be able to find a way to get through life's hardships, because we're going to take away all of that governmental factor that gives you a barrier. We're going to actually give it to you.
Let's talk about this for a second, because I think this is an interesting point you're making here. I think the cities that are aligned like Alton, and I'll use an example I'm familiar with, which is Belleville, Illinois. I worked in Belleville, Illinois, when Belleville, the downtown part, was nothing to be proud of. I mean, there were a lot of boarded up buildings, a lot of vacant retail space and stuff. And they made some modest improvements, and that city, that part of their downtown area has really thrived, in part due to some leadership, but also just some minor improvements in sidewalks and lighting and so forth. But one of the things that's interesting that I think that they did is they didn't try to compete with the big box stores, because, the mom and pop shop on a retail corner isn't going to compete with Best Buy or Lowe's. Nobody can compete with Home Depot.
Now, I don't work there no more.
That's an inside joke between Brian and I.
Yeah,
and so, but what do you do? Because the city only has a limited amount of resources. What do you do to foster this kind of creativity? And sometimes you get some pushback. For example, great illustration is the tattoo parlor that we have in town.
Right.
There was a lot of opposition, but that's the kind of industry that can draw people from outside the community, that's not going to try to go up against the big box stores, which is a recipe for failure. So how do you incubate that? Given that you only have so much money and so much opportunity and so much authority as a city, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, let's start with, how are we going to get more money? How are we going to increase our city's purchasing capacity?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do that with technology, not with just a modernization of technology. Endeavors like our dependency on energy,
Mm-hmm.
that could be mitigated by putting in solar streetlights. That'll reduce and give the city a bit of kickback and savings on money.
They even did solar streetlights.
We can apply that's just one portion. We can apply that back into the city to start incubator projects. We also want to look on the things that go towards the people, like reducing, property taxes, business taxes. We want to, take use of our green space too. We got a lot of parcels that are just underutilized. They've been overgrown. Like in my precinct, we've got a lot of parcels that have just grown up everywhere. Now that right there presents, a work project where we can, incorporate jobs into, clearing all that area out, landscaping, where we can then start in agricultural or architectural. It's going to be one or the other, where we're either going to be growing with that land or building on that land.
Which is what it should be. We talked last time about Alton Sinay. It's been sitting there empty now.
Just sitting there empty.
Here's a prime you would think a prime location that somebody would want to jump on, and it hasn't happened. And I think that question has to be answered. I'm not asking to answer that question on the show today, but as a person that drives by it all the time, how does that happen? And why can't we get somebody to pluck into there?
Well, that's the thing, is when you asked the question earlier about the power groups and how they exist in Alton, the buildings like that, or buildings like the Grand, all of the areas up in there, when you look at the ownership of those properties and why they let those properties sit for so long without doing anything with them, You got to understand, are they, one, waiting on something to change in the area's demographics to where it becomes a better commodity at that point in time to sell? What's going on? Is it a power play? It still gives the collateral damage to the people, though. No matter what's going on, the collateral damage is the people's. Now, with home rule, we have the ability to affect that at all levels. Enough of us speaking together and unified, we are now voice. We can change any law. We need to go through those old laws, those old policies that are made back in the 70s, and start to get rid of some of them.
Can you give us some examples of what you're talking about?
Like, say, with our historical housing commission, there's a law that, forces people who live in the historical district that have to come before the commission to make any changes to the property. Now, the designation of a historical district at the state level doesn't require you to go before any commission or board to make any changes. That's something that we have, as Alton, decided to put as a practice upon our citizens. Now, how would you tell a brand new family that looks at Alton from abroad and says, hey, look, this is this perfect Midwestern town. It's got a lot of culture. It's got a lot of history. The crime isn't so bad, and we see this nice, beautiful house in a historic location. But, we have our own personal values as a family, things that we see as artistic creation and how we want to live our lives and see our houses grow.
Right.
And we're going to move in here and now. We got to listen to a board of people who don't know us and, don't care about our endeavors on how we want to see our homes grow. Tell us what we can and can't do based on something that we may or may not actually have a belief in.
But how do you, and I come from this perspective from Lafayette Square. I lived in Lafayette Square for several years. And one of the things that they were very vigilant about is maintaining their historic presence through the use of zoning and building codes. They had a historic code, and it was very difficult for people to put like a neon sign out front and stuff like that, and a lot of people had some heartburn with it. But my point is, if you lax those codes, it is virtually impossible to maintain the same historic feel to those neighborhoods if you essentially let anything go. And once you've lost that historic identity, I don't know that you can put the genie back in the bottle and get it back. So where do you draw the line between allowing people some personal expression and freedom with respect to how their house looks versus maintaining a kind of presence that distinguishes Alton from Wood River, East Alton, Edwardsville, places like that?
Well, that goes back down to into community intrinsic justices. That's what I like to look at it as, how a person feels as far as their pride in the city. Not where you're from, but where you're a part of. Now, if we have people move in or, and they move into an area and the continuity of the area is mainly, Victorian or something like that in the area.
Right.
They're usually proud of the fact that now they own a Victorian home. So they're not going to really go to the huge extent to change it into some weird-looking castle.
Right.
But
somebody could, though. If you change that law, I think that's where John.
We don't want to repeal the laws that keep a bit of, I guess, togetherness within the community. We want the people to feel connected, within the communities, and then from the communities to one another, and then as a city as a whole. So we want to have a complete continuity. So when you say, well, you have this situation going on where you don't want them to change the structure of the house, we got to look at the other areas of the city that don't even get a chance to get that qualification at all.
Is part of, I think...
Yeah, let's take a quick break real quick. We'll be right back. Brian and John, special guest Josh Riel. Be right back. We might disagree.
Trigger Talent's course covers the mandated curriculums of Illinois and Florida. Our facility allows for a safe, professional, comfortable, in any weather shooting environment. We utilize a variety of law enforcement targets to illustrate the best shot placement for stopping threats. Our advanced course, CCW Plus, is the only in the state to offer training from a real vehicle in road rage, carjacking, and parking lot scenarios. Over 1,400 people have trusted Trigger Talent to be their choice in concealed carry and advanced instruction. Shouldn't you also?
You walk onto this campus and it feels as though you're at an Ivy League institution.
It is cultured in so many ways. You would never know that it is a 2-year college.
This place is truly amazing. I love going to school here.
It is definitely not like any other community college.
If you're looking for a way for your life to change, then Lewis and Clark is the place for you to be.
All right, welcome back to We Might Disagree with Brian and John, and special guest Joshua Young. So, good conversation early on. Obviously, we can go deep into the hours and late into the night on that one, and I like that. And it's good conversation. I think that's the conversations that the viewers of We Might Disagree want to hear. So, but I do, with time as it is right now, let's talk about what happened to you in your regards to filing your paperwork to run as a Democrat.
Right.
And so. And there's been a lot of back and forth on a lot of this stuff, but I want to hear what you and I kind of talked on Facebook a little bit, Messenger. But tell our viewers what happened.
Well, the
everybody's confused on this, man.
The hows and whys of this primary, how the primary kind of came about. Well, and I waited for the other 3 candidates to come out and declare, and they all declared independent. So my run as a Democrat was solely for the presence of separating Alton as a city from the rest of Madison County, make a historical first. So that way we could utilize it as almost a revenue builder. Okay. We're making history when it comes to Madison County, But so at that point in time, there would have been no primary. It was just myself running as a Democrat. Okay. Well, all of a sudden then we have, a change in decision with Rashka, where he decides that he's going to run as a Democrat, and now we have a forced primary. Well, there was the rumors that if he didn't run to challenge me as a Democrat, that they would bring about someone else to challenge me as a Democrat and then drop out on the primary after they defeated me in the primary, thus preventing me to have the blind Democratic vote. We're a Democratic city. They're like, we don't want to have blind Democratic vote. So here we are with this primary, with myself and Rashka, and with his recent determination that he's just going to move on and not really fight for his Democratic seat. It's like, well, why did you get in there and force the possibility anyway?
He didn't elaborate to me what he was doing. I don't think he was just like, I'm done with it. I think he was still in the process. He just didn't. I didn't ask for details, and I'm not going to speak for him either. Right. But I want to be clear. He didn't. If I gave the impression he's just going to walk away from it, I don't think that's the case. But I don't know for sure.
Okay.
We didn't get into a big. It was just, I'm not coming on. This is what I'm doing. Good luck. Thank you. It was good.
I hope that with this first time ever primary, we could show the example of a primary that isn't like the federal primaries where they were exhaustive. We could actually show something great for as far as showing the people how a true primary could work to educate and bring about social change and all of those things when it came to party lines.
Are you suggesting that maybe that through this primary process, he has some ideas that you could benefit from, and you have some ideas that he could benefit from?
Well, kind of like the Libertarian Party primaries. Those guys were like best friends,
Right. I think the concern is, how did both of them not qualify paperwork-wise?
Well,
that's right.
That's a detail that I'm not aware of. So fill me in on that.
And this is what I don't understand.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm sorry, due to just a crazy week and bad timing and all this other stuff, I haven't been able to totally dig in to find out what role the city clerk has versus, like if you're presenting me paperwork and I know it's not correct, do I have an obligation legally to tell you this is not correct? Do I have an obligation to give you a heads up on an amount of time to put it in? I mean, there's just a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions and I don't know that you have answers. You may have answers.
I do have answers.
So I kind of want to know, and I think our viewers, and I speak for a lot, I've been bombarded with this. What happened?
Well, let's and I don't think anybody really knows, so set it straight.
And I'll put it out here, too. I'm going to throw this out there. A lot of people felt like there's some, and again, this is just people talking. I want to be very clear. Nobody of any significance said this to me, but that maybe Alton couldn't afford a primary and didn't want to go through a primary.
Agreed.
So and I don't know if that's true. I don't know, but that's been said. I've heard it from more than one person. So given that, that's it's something to think. But when two people,
how does a primary bring cost to all?
Because they're usually scheduled during a regularly cycled election event.
Well, even furthermore, the responsibility was at the county level. And in the budget that was passed at the county level, they did not budget for a primary because they didn't believe that something would happen. So when the primary became a reality, like, hey, these guys are actually coming, you know, it became what I thought was perceived to me as they were taking it offensively. Hey, we didn't budget for it. We're not going to let this happen. So when I picked up my packet for the partisan races down with the city clerk, you know, she had to call the State Board of Elections to find out what was going on, and then she finally did give me the paperwork. But the packet that I received for the partisan had, you know, not near as much as information as the packet I received for independent. I just went back and picked up an independent packet to see what it looked like. It had memorandums in it that, you know, kind of it explained the process really well. And to furthermore with the thought that was unethical and even malicious with myself is that I contacted the county office when I looked at my packet. And I said, hey, look, you know, the statement of economic interest says to bring it to you, but the paperwork I received says take it to your election authority and turn everything in there. But if you have any questions, contact Madison County. And they said, oh, no, just like with our races that are run at our level, everybody turns in that statement of economic interest here. And we just keep everything because it all comes to us. So turn everything, your whole package into your election authority. When I went to Mary Bowles' office, she confirmed it to be that way, which was erroneous in the end. She confirmed it to be that way, that I would bring my statement of economic interest there. Even so, on both packages, because I turned in 2 packages, it's a level of trust that I had, that I thought that the clerk being in an elected position, that with the level of help that she gave to the independents, you know, they have no problems. Everything is easy. They understand the complete process. But with myself, she kind of just clamped up like, I'm not giving you any information. And the things that are the similar paperwork, like the statement of economic interest, it's the same piece of paper for independents and partisans. Mm-hmm. She would have been able to tell me the same way, no, take this up there. Now, here's the kicker. There's a thing that she gives when you turn in your packet called a receipt for nominating papers. And it's got individualized boxes, one for the loyalty oath, where she would check it being received, the loyalty oath. One for the petitions, she would check that. Now, the petitions go a little bit deeper because you got to have them notarized, and that's how she kind of got me the first time and forced me to have to go back and repetition again. There's the line for the receipt for the statement of economic interest, not the statement of economic interest, the receipt. And she checked those boxes on both receipts of nominating papers, telling me that this is where you turn in that statement of economic interest, everything is good. Mm-hmm. But now she's violating me for turning it into the wrong place. So
it's interesting. There hasn't been a lot of talk about it. There's like a quick press release, you know, with you and Lieutenant Dan's pictures up there. You know, didn't give a lot of details. I think Mayor Walker had said that he thinks that partisan politics is, you know, he doesn't believe, I guess, in their party politics. And
where can you read that? Where can you read that?
You can read that at RiverBender.com. I have it on my Facebook page. Actually, that's where I got the newsflash. But I think, you know, so did the Democrat, so you were an Democrat.
Right.
Did the Democratic Party step in and help you?
No. They seem to actually be in support of Raj Cobb entering into the race, but that's unconfirmed, and I don't want to say either which way.
Should we call you Bernie Sanders? Come on, John, that was awesome.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm pretty progressive.
You know. But a blind squirrel every once in a while.
The Democratic Party treats its people. I'm just making a shot at that. That's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. Sorry.
But we went through that. If you follow me on my Facebook page, you can see that, you know, I'm a Democrat. I'm true blue, but I believe in a bipartisan thing. And, you know, that showed throughout the county races with me. And I took a lot of slack for it, but I believe in not compromising the people's value first. It's not about party politics when it comes to the people's interests, because you can't really point at a person and just say, oh, he's a Republican. Oh, he's a Democrat, just by view. So you have to kind of overestimate, you know, the factor in that they could be any party. You just got to be ready to facilitate them equally. You know?
So this, just for me and maybe for other people, so if, you know, this was the first time we're going to have we've had a Democrat mayor in Alton in the past?
There's been no partisan.
Okay, so you're saying you wanted to run as a Democrat for the purpose of I'm confused on why it's so important to have that D next to your name.
Well,
I mean, I don't care why. I just want to know why, really. I mean, why do you want that D?
Right, it is very important to me to have that D. Okay. One of the reasons is because that's all I've known since birth. My family, multiple generations, is from what I can witness, we've been Democrat. We voted blind Democrat. Now, that's the part of my democratic principles that I don't agree with. Right. Let's be a little more open with hearing out these candidates and still vote in consideration of the truth, but supportive of our party as well. That's understandable to me. The second part of why I wanted to run as a Democrat is, as I said before, never before has this been done. And as far as Madison County goes, with the need of being able to try and find a way to bring Alton's value up quickly, time is of the essence for me. Let's get the people, a maximization process as soon as possible. So me running as a Democrat at this level makes history in Madison County. It would help us to stand out that in Madison County, an African-American man is the first partisan, gives hope to, a larger demographic within Madison County, being that Alton has the largest, kind of breakdown minority population like that. So it kind of goes as a, call to the people that we can do, we can go sky's the limit in today's time. There are no limitations.
So John, as a lawyer, you listening to this, what's your take? I mean, as a lawyer, what do you mean?
In terms of how the clerk handled the process? Yeah. I think there's a lot of potential. And I'm an election lawyer, so, obviously.
I've been looking for one, so.
I think there's some serious problems there with respect to when they make affirmative representations, and particularly that receipt thing sounds very hokey.
Would you like to see it?
Yeah, we off there. After we're done here, I'll be happy to take a look at it. But yeah, here's the thing: is that, and I think you touched on it. When you have a clerk that is politically elected, this kind of stuff happens. Now, I will say, in fairness, I deal with a court system, and that person is politically elected, clerks of the court, and they usually do a very professional job. So that's that they can't. But when the rubber meets the road, and you have these kinds of tense issues, those politics creep in, and it tends to get ugly. So
here, let's do a quick break, and last break, and then we'll be right back. Brian John, special guest Josh Young. We might disagree.
Welcome to Claywell Asset Management, an independent firm. Whether you're an individual, family, or business, we can assist you in helping you achieve your financial dreams. Claywell Asset Management and Raymond James, partners in your success in serving Riverbend investors for over 30 years. Member FINRA and SIPC.
At Midwest Members Credit Union, you are important. We work hard to ensure you have the best banking experience possible. Whether you are inquiring about opening a savings account or wanting to learn more about a loan, our professionals are here to help you with any questions, and we will walk you through every step of the process. Since opening our doors in 1935, we've never forgotten that our members are our most important asset, which is why we continue to excel. For all your banking needs, Midwest Members is the one place to go. Calc Institute of Technology is working for you with career programs for today's jobs. As a career student, you can expect a welcoming atmosphere with exceptional personal service, small classes with one-on-one attention, a set class schedule, and short-term programs that will get you into the workforce quickly. Calc has 2 locations for your convenience, located in both Alton and Fairview Heights. For more information, visit Calc online at www.calc.edu.
I'll grab the birthday cake, you bring the gift, if you're sure she's ready.
She's 16, honey, and she's earned a set of keys.
She's studied and practiced, I know, but it's a big responsibility.
When you have a teen driver, it's good to know that Madison Mutual has the insurance coverage you need.
She's ready, and so are we. I talked to our Madison Mutual agent.
Call Barry Macias, your local independent insurance agent, at 467-2874.
The more life changes, the more you need Madison Mutual.
Hey, welcome back to We Might Disagree with Brian John, special guest Josh Young. We are all still here. John has not left yet, so thanks for that. So I think we probably got more questions now after listening to you, and I know that John and I will do some research on this, and Lori and him just going to chew on this for a while because it is what it is, and it's unfortunate, but you're still going to be on the ballot, correct?
Well, that's kind of up for debate. Either I have some options right now. Either I'm going to, pursue it legally and try and press an injunction and get my Democratic back, which I don't like to compromise because it shows that the power machine can bend you. And that goes out to the people. And this is a campaign of the people. And we want to show them that I'm here to fight. I'm here to fight. Or I could run as a write-in, just file my declaration of intent and get on as a write-in candidate.
That's how Walker got in. So.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you think the fact that you're the only African-American candidate had anything to do with how your application was processed?
Well, I could believe that's partial, one of the variables to it. But I believe it's more of a fear-based thing where they fear that my type of, administration poses a big change for a lot of other demographics. It's fear based on misnomers.
Yeah.
They would be better suited to sit down and chat it up with me. Let's talk about how we can bring everybody to the table. But they know that I am going to get rid of the social dysfunction. I'm going to get rid of those things that are allowing a small percentage of people to flourish and the large percentage of the people to have to go through the day-to-day and the month-to-month, struggles. It should be balanced, and I'm here to balance it. They know that's why. And I believe, if we want to say it's a racial issue, yes, we're going to play it out to be maybe a 70-30 split, where 70% is, what I bring to the table socioeconomically and what changes I plan to make, and then 30% being racial, because they want to keep that level of superficially out there. But let's not confuse the listeners out here. Racial tensions are superficial. We're a diverse city, we're a diverse nation, but we have more alike than we do in difference.
Well, let me ask you this though, and I come from this as an outsider. I wasn't born in Alton or Godfrey. I'm a transplant from St. Louis, but and I've lived in all kinds of different cities, both sides of the river.
Right.
But it strikes me that this community is one of the most racially polarized communities I've ever seen. Not to say there aren't more polarized communities, just for my personal frame of references. So how do you, as an African American working in a political system that, let's be honest, has been run essentially by white people from time immemorial, how do you, on the one hand, put your foot in that door and say, as an African American man, I'm here to make my presence known, but also work across the aisle with other people who perhaps aren't really willing to work with African Americans or aren't receptive to the notion that we should have an African American mayor in Alton?
Well,
easy for me to say.
I'm going to go back to my military ethics on that one. We're all green, and
Absolutely.
If they don't want to work across the table because of the color of my skin, they gotta go. And we're home rule. I'm very transparent. Facebook is a wonderful tool for getting out public meeting issues, and I utilize it all the time. If your representatives don't respond to you and you believe it's based on your area and your area is majority black, it could be true. But let's put them on blast. Let's force them to respond to the issue. And my We Are Now campaign is just that. It is a polarization issue in here, and it creates a dark cloud overall, and especially with our history of abolitionists like Lovejoy. That's why I chose a progressive of now versus then, because they were more segregated then, but they still have more prosperity. Under my campaign and under my administration, an administration that's going to work towards advocating the people's progression, there will be a cultural renaissance, and it'll bring up a leveling of the playing field. Everybody will have a chance to express cultural freedoms and values to each other. We should be, sharing that type. We've been sharing our cultural value through human condition anyway.
Sure. Some degree, yeah.
We have to work together, or we have zero chance to succeed.
Yeah, I think
that holds us back,
and there is.
I don't, but see, from where I'm sitting, John, you and I go back and forth on this all the time. I don't see it as bad as you see it. I mean, I think there's a divide now like I've never seen.
Well, let's look at our police department. I grew up within that police department. But the neighborhood knocked on my door in the weirdest times of the night to get my mother, who retired from the police department, to come deal with situations. She was very responsive to the public. And that was at a time where the police department was a little more diverse. And we had bridges between the police department and the community. Now the police department is a power group in itself.
You think so?
I believe so. And it upsets me because I'm a child of a police officer, so I have a deep respect and love about the police department and law. That's what I did in the military. Right. I went into law and legal practices. So when I come home to the city and I see that our bridges are gone and that the people are complaining once again about issues that we shouldn't be faced with, because we have a community that had a public school where all demographics kind of grew together. Our football program, I went through the Little League football. There's white and black kids in that program. Oh, yeah. And those same non-minorities like Cagney's, that's my brother still.
Right. I see. I just don't see the division in Alton like I do in the country. I mean, I don't see it here as bad. And maybe I just don't see it. Maybe I'm.
From my perspective as an outsider, what I see is their neighborhoods that are mostly African American, and then I see the surrounding area as essentially, almost monolithically white. I've had people tell me, "Oh, you can't go into that neighborhood." It's stuff like that.
Well, I have great value in that because as the precinct committeeman of Precinct 22. I sit in that bowl around that historic district, which is, that Hunterstown district. Right. And that's why I felt that such a need to make that area a new historical district, because I found through a little bit of investigation, Freedom of Information Act pulling, that the city distributes 80% of its resources into the historic districts. Now, those resources could be qualified as community development block grant, the motor fuel transit money, all of that is for infrastructure. There was a time when the aldermen had an allotment of money from the city where they could apply it anywhere in their ward, and that was stripped from them. They need to have that back so that way we can start to level out the infrastructure in the city. That will increase the overall grade of the city, thus giving us the ability to see outside resources. If we get unified, in the modern age, and this is where the modernization point come in, is that it's digital. We unify our city, and we create a template of a unified city. That's what America wants. They want to see that city that is that diverse, but shows cultural, goodness amongst them all, and how they share and pull together and progress, because we're going to have business incubators. We're going to have cultural renaissance.
Are you going to have Syrian refugees?
All right, we're up against the clock here, so we're going to go, but, so Joshua Young.
All good people.
Real quick here. Last word, sir. Why you?
Because we are now. Because the people deserve a change. And my voice is the voice of that change. And I'm the voice that will carry for the people. As long as they're ready to fight, I will fight with you all the way. We are now.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Mr. Young. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, guys. It's been
great
fun.
show. He'll be back, I promise you. We'll try a little more punctual here on our show. It's been a little crazy with the holidays. Have a great, safe weekend, everybody. John, good to see you, my brother. Mr. Producer, good job today. Almost got it perfect. See you later. Episode 19. We'll be on podcast. Bye-bye.
See you.
All right.
One of the greatest myths about car dealers is that some pay less for their cars than others. Hi, I'm John Roberts, and we all pay the same. Here at Roberts Motors, we can compete